And for Don Bosco, that notion of helping young people understand the richness and the variety and the greatness of the faith that we share in church was so, so important. For him, it was about reason, religion, and kindness. He wanted to ensure that his young people in that original oratory at Valdocco in Turin could appreciate and value their experience of church. He worked hard to help them through music, through readings, through drama, to explore the richness of Scripture and the richness of liturgy. As a priest, Father STE is going to be working in the broadest possible church possible. And that, of course, is in our schools. He may well on a Sunday say Mass in a parish, but he is trying in his position as a Salesian teacher to bring the Church of God into the hearts and to the lives of so many young people.
This is one of our dogs in our parish here at St James's, and the story about dogs and Salesians. Don Bosco had a dog, and the dog was Grigio. Grigio was a protector of Don Bosco, and this beautiful dog here is part of the parish community and also helps as well. It's a guide dog.
She looks after me now.
That's good. That's good.
When I'm out there, I go completely blind, and she's marvellous.
Yeah, she is. No, she's fantastic. She's fantastic. Beautiful. So we're in the sacristy of St James's Church, and this is where I was an altar server. So I would serve the altar here, I would come to Mass here, and we would have little church. So in this room as well, all the children of the parish would come and have their catechism classes. So we're in the Archdiocese of Liverpool, so we see the Holy Father there and the Archbishop Malcolm. James's is my spiritual home. I was baptised here 28 years ago. I made my first Holy Communion here 21 years ago. I was confirmed here 15 years ago. And then in July 2023, I will be ordained a priest here. So the community here is a fantastic community of prayer, fantastic community of love. And we see St. John Bosco. So it's a fantastic community of our Salesian presence. And I think Bootle being the community of young people and a poor area, it's really good that we as Salesians were here, and it was really good for me that the Salesians were here. I was baptised by a Salesian, Father Pat McCambridge, using this font. This very font, Father Pat McCambridge baptised me here. So one Salesian, Father McCambridge, was a fantastic Salesian that lived here for so long, and he was the parish priest. So many people love and remember him. But this is my home. This is where I prayed. This is where I got close to God. But also this is where I realized how to be a good youth worker, because we started a youth club here called Youth Active, which again was fantastic. And that happened first of all in the church. Like Don Bosco said, a church should be a place for love, for joy and for happiness. We would run around this church as young kids because we didn't have anywhere else to play. Then we started using the primary school. Then more and more kids started coming to the parish. So this is, for me, a perfect place to say, this is where the Salesians are, this is where the Salesians should be, and this is where we got a vocation, thankfully, after 60 years.
Rita Shannon, a Salesian cooperator, catechist, friend. Now, over the years, you have known STE, probably since he was kind of a small guy. What were your impressions of him when you worked with him back in the day?
Well, he always put in quite a lot of work. He was sincere. He had lots of time for the children. And we did quite a lot of work together with the communion programme. When Father Jerry couldn't be here on the Wednesday afternoon for the special mass for the children that couldn't come to church every weekend, STE and I would take turns of doing a Eucharistic service for the children and probably the mums more than anything.
Excellent. And in that work with the children, especially in preparing children for First Holy Communion, could you see then possibly he was a person who might make a good priest?
Yes, he was just so sincere, and you know, you just watch him sometime from the back, and he'd be kneeling there just praying. There's just something about him. Mm-hmm. My husband Tommy, he always said to me, STE will become a Salesian priest. And I put this to STE a few times, and STE said, there's no way. And
Tommy's looking up.
Tommy's looking from heaven over him, over STE, because he had a lot of time for STE. Yeah. He knew how dedicated he was.
Excellent.
And when STE called me one day and said to me, I've got something to tell you, I'm joining the Salesians. And my reaction was, I wish you'd have put £100 on a bet with Betfred, because Tommy would have won his bet.
So here we are in the beautiful grounds of St James's Parish in Bootle, the home parish of STE. Michael, you are a legend in this area, without a doubt, because you've been here since the very foundation of the Salesian work. What was it like back in those days?
Well, the Salesians came here and opened a grammar school in 1964, and I came in 1965 because there was supposed to be a scientific slant on this grammar school, and I came with a priest who was retiring from teaching A-level, Father Delahunty, and we came that year and we started. The school had begun in the old St Martin's College on Stanley Road, Bootle, and then at Easter 1966 we moved up to the site in Netherton Way, and we were there, and we are there still. The name of the school has changed a few times, and the nature of the school has become, of course, in 1972 comprehensive. And in 1972 there were 13 priests teaching in the school. How times change. So that was the beginning of the Salesian work in Bootle. And I think the reason we chose Bootle was that we already had a dozen or so vocations to the Salesian priesthood from the Greater Merseyside area.
And so the thought was that there would be more vocations coming from this area.
I guess that's the reason, one of the reasons. But it's a good reason, it's a good area for Salesians to be in, I think.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, that is the school that Steve went to for his secondary education.
Yeah.
And in a sense, your dream came true.
Yes, it did. Well, the dream of the Salesian superiors came true, I think. So, of course, I was finished in the school by the time Steve joined, but I did teach perhaps 3 of his uncles, and certainly I had been to see his grandparents at their home in Bootle, and one of my jobs was to interview the children who were coming to Salesian College, as it then was, and Salesian High School, as it became, to have a chat with the head teacher and to meet the pupils. And of course, by the time that Steve had come, we were now living in St James's Parish. We'd moved off the site, and we used to invite in some possible young men into the community, and Steve and others came in, and that's how we got to know Steve really well. And I remember one Saturday night after another running him home to Pearson Drive. Yeah.
And would you say that notion of hospitality, that notion of welcoming young people into Salesian homes, Salesian houses, Salesian communities, was that pretty important in your way of helping Steve to discern his vocation?
Well, I would think so. But I think all religious, you know, the monks in the Alps and whatnot, they've all got the vocation of hospitality. And I think that that's why we did it. And it wasn't only young men we had, but we had parishioners from time to time, and certainly parish helpers we had visiting us you know, for a meal from time to time. Not perhaps as regular as when Steve was here, but it still goes on.
So you've seen Steve through the primary school as a young altar server. You've seen Steve through secondary school. You've seen Steve as a head altar boy here in the church at St James's. You've seen him as a lector reading the Word of God. You've seen him as a Eucharistic minister. You've seen him as a youth leader in our Youth Active programme. And now in a couple of months' time, you're going to see him ordained in this church. How does that make you feel, Michael?
It's wonderful, wonderful. As I say, if this, what the Salesian superiors had in mind in coming to Bootle was to get a Salesian vocation, well then it's worked at last after all these years. But there have been other boys who have become priests in the diocese and elsewhere, but we haven't had a Salesian yet, but at least when we got one, we've got a very good one.
Brilliant. Father Michael Duggan, thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, hi, my name's Monica from St James's Church in Bootle. I've been here for over 40 years and this is where I met Steve. Steve used to come here as a boy when he was about 15 for the evening meal with all the priests at St James's. That's how I met Steve. He used to come in and he used to sit with me for about half an hour before he went in for the meal, and we used to have a real good chat. He's such a lovely boy. His parents must be so proud, and everybody at St James's is so proud of him.
Anne, Marie, two very loyal members of the St James's family here in Bootle. Thank you for talking to us today here at the altar of the Sacred Heart, which means so much to us. It's central to Don Bosco's devotion. Now, you have known Steve because you've been members of this family of old. Exactly. So what memories do you have of him as a youngster here in this parish?
Yeah, when he was about 7, I think that's probably my earliest recollection of Steve, and he was an altar boy. And we had a group of altar boys, all virtually the same age, but Steve always stood out as the quiet, shy, but very confident young man that he is. Watching him today, and he preached today at our service.
It's absolutely beautiful.
It was amazing, and every time I've heard him preach as a young adult, I get really emotional because it's lovely to see somebody come through from a child right through, stay with our church, come every week on his own, serve the community, always has had time for the older people like Marie and I. So it's just lovely. It's such a blessing to our parish.
And I think that's important as well, to realise that Steve has come through the parish, he's walked through this parish, his steps have been in and around St James's Bootle. So come the 15th of July, how do you think you're going to be feeling?
I'm bringing a load of handkerchiefs with me.
To be honest, even today, his speech made me laugh and then it made me cry, you know.
Yeah.
Because you still think of him as a little boy.
Yeah.
And then he's growing up now.
So Steve is very much part of this community.
Yeah. He's our Steve.
He's our Steve,
Yeah.
but don't forget, because he's our Steve, then
Yeah.
you have been part of that journey with him.
Yeah.
And that's something that you need to be thanked for.
He's taken the love that he's found here out to the world, and what more can he ask?
So the love of Jesus that he found in this parish, he's taking out to the world. What better testimony can we have for Steve? And what advice would you give to Steve now on the kind of the threshold of his ordination to the priesthood? What do you think young people are looking for in a Salesian priest?
They're looking for people that, you know, are down to earth, I think, that they can relate to, you know, that understand, that honest, you know, and that are caring, you know, that you deeply love the child and you want the best for them, and you're trying your best to, you know, to develop them in their own way.
Brilliant. Would you say the same, Victoria?
Yeah, he's obviously he is anyway, but that he carries on the way he is and still moves with the times. don't get set in your own
Right.
old ways, but he's got that nature where he can see what's happening around, and he's still obviously involved in schools and youth groups and stuff, and as long as you're keeping up with everybody.
Right.
Yeah,
And keep the fun and laughter.
Yeah.
Very important. Very important to have humour. And from a practical point of view, you two, along with so many others in the parish, are going to be getting ready for this ordination. So at this stage of the game, what do you think 15th of July is going to look like?
Oh, we can't wait. Never mind your revision. You know, we've got Steve's ordination.
We have. It's going to be fabulous. It's going to be a weekend-long affair.
Brilliant.
It's going to be such a celebration.
You've alluded to this already, but the feeling of pride in the parish, do you think that's something?
Yeah, even young ones that don't know him, but they know about him, right through to the older generation who've seen him grow, and from just popping into church to being an altar server, to being the head altar server, and then leaving us and going off to do the things that he's done. The pride of everybody right the way through. They're so excited.
Excellent.
Yeah, so excited.
The things as a Salesian cooperator that you have a great devotion to Our Lady,
Our Blessed Lady,
help of Christians, and so perhaps you might want to ask our Blessed Mother to be with Steve, especially in these months leading up to his ordination, and especially during his priestly life.
I'd just like to entrust our Blessed Lady to Stephen, to guide him and to help him to make the right decisions and directions, because he's got a long road ahead of him.